I don't ever ask people, are you struggling with, or it's, hey, how have you addressed this in your life? Because if they don't have a solid answer, I know that they're probably struggling.
Welcome to the Faithful Fathering Podcast. This is Rick Wirtz, founder and president of Faithful Fathering. Glad you're here to join us. Andrew Buck of Freedom Fight is with us to share some of his insight in this pandemic, if you will, of in our society. Andrew, you shared some statistics in the last segment. Refresh our memory a little bit about what we're really talking about, both secular and Christian, or the fact that there isn't a heck of a lot of difference, right?
Yeah, there's a brutal reality that is pervasive.
Mm-hmm.
78% of Christian men are using at some level. Doesn't mean every day for all of them, but 70% are using it monthly. So it's definitely something that they're going to, but also it's not just a man's problem. And that's actually just really something significant is we can't just talk about a man's problem because it actually produces a lot of shame for the women struggling because they're like, man, I shouldn't be, if it should just be a guy's, why do I struggle with this? I must be different. I must, all those things.
Or they're trying to fit into that picture for,
exactly.
If this is what satisfies the guy, maybe I need to do something different and learn about this. So what a sad situation. Huh?
Yeah. And so that's about 34% of Christian women are using pornography at some level. And so that's kind of our current reality that we're living in today.
And tell me about the breakup. Baby boomers, millennials, how's that? Is there some breakdown of that in Barna's survey?
Yeah, essentially the younger you are, the more you're using. The youngest, or I should say the oldest generation is the least, but it's just under around 70%. So that's kind of, I think I'm escaping me right now, but I believe it's the 50 and older is about 70%. Maybe might be less than 60%. But the Gen Z is 18 to 27, so that's the youngest. That's at 83%. Then it's actually the biggest chunk is that 28 to 43, which is kind of my age. That's the 91% is using. And so it's not a question of, I don't ever ask people, hey, are you struggling with? It's hey, how have you addressed this in your life? Because if they don't have a solid answer, I know that they're probably struggling, just statistically.
Right. I had a dad one time. A young man came and asked for his daughter's hand, and the first question is, "What is your relationship with pornography?"
Yeah, that's a great question.
And that was
a little late, but it's a good question.
Well, there may be some contingency clause in here as they go on, but what an opportunity for a potential father-in-law to say, "Hey, I'm here to come beside you on this journey." Right?
Yeah, it's bold.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I know the statistics suggest that the church isn't a heck of a lot different, and so that's not the Bible says we're supposed to be aliens in this world, right?
Yeah.
We're not supposed to conform to the pattern of this world. That's a challenge, isn't it? When it comes to all the stimulation, the titillation, if you will, of the media today, it sounds like it's done a good job grabbing the younger generation.
Yeah, exactly. You're spot on. The other piece that's disheartening is, okay, how widespread consumption is of pornography. And those stats were from in the church and out of the church. They're the same. But yet only 9% of churches have any kind of resource to address this. And it doesn't even mean a really good resource to address this, just anything, right? Okay, I have a book I can hand someone. That can be helpful, but it's not necessarily like a proven accountability group that's meeting regularly, that's systematically going through something to help them grow in this area. And so it's still only 9% have something, and so 91% of churches have nothing.
There you go. That's almost a similar statistics with men's ministry as a whole. There are a number of churches that have no men's ministry or fathering ministry to speak of, and I think that's where it has to start, you would think. But now your involvement, the Freedom Fight, was personal before it became professional. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I was, exposed when I was young. I was about sixth grade to and mostly started out of curiosity. I saw someone making a hand gesture in the cafeteria at school, and I wasn't really sure what that was. And that kind of led to me stumbling upon pornography, and then, kept going back to it just because it was something so new and just different, and just a lot of curiosity. But it became pretty addictive in high school because I began using it just every other day. And that led into college before I came to faith, which, a lot of people that are believers still struggle with this coming to faith. But for me, I came to faith in college and was using pornography weekly, and then really began a lot of just guilt and shame and the hypocrisy because of that. And really started trying to white knuckle it by myself. I actually had no real church community at that point. I came to faith and was involved in this ministry, but hadn't yet really plugged in with other believers really well, right? I think there's a big transition that has to happen generally in your Christian walk, and I just hadn't made it yet until that summer. I came back to school, and that's when I really joined a group of some really committed believers that are my age, and got accountability, was equipped with some practical tools, and began doing the work that it took to find freedom from pornography.
Fantastic. And then what was the catalyst to say, okay, this has opened my eyes, and I've become free. I can't ever say freedom without thinking of Braveheart. Freedom. And I know that it is so critical to be free of this distraction, to be in a healthy relationship, right?
Yes.
I always counsel dads that, the first inclination when your son has stumbled on a picture or a beside, I think, as with many dads, is to get angry. And I said, time out. Don't get angry. This is not, when Adam said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, he's saying, God, you did good work here. There's a natural physical attraction to the opposite sex. And that's, I think that's healthy. We just have to rein it in and say, okay, now let's talk about this fantasy world versus a healthy relationship. But you throw in the divorce statistics and the unhealthy relationships that kids are experiencing in the home, and they just pursue this fantasy relationship because it's such an exciting alternative to some, at least early on, to get into that world. So at some juncture, you made that call to move from personal to going corporate, to say, I need to help other young men and women to solve this issue on a broader scale. Tell a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, I had zero intention of going to full-time ministry.
You are an engineer, God, I always say an engineer doesn't like to ask for help or accept gifts. So let's put him in ministry.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And so for me, being able to experience the group that I was in so my sophomore year in college, I was in a group, found freedom. I would say fairly quickly, about 5 months from the physically acting out, but wanted to stay in the group to address the fantasy, to address just the mind and just really restore that. And just to, I was like, man, I want to make sure I can go into my marriage like fully ready. Like I want to put this completely to death, begin leading a group, and got a taste of what it means to disciple others, what it means to lead others. Especially in this area. And then when my now boss, the founder of the Freedom Fight, was leading a group when I was a senior, and he asked me what I just felt this deep conviction is, man, God has delivered me in this area. It wasn't instant. 1 to 2% of people God delivers instantly. But we've seen as God is using for another 98% of people, and God's using what Satan's using for evil for good. Because when people, and this was my personal story as well, is, man, when I began to walk in freedom, I was walking deeper with the Lord. I was more excited about His kingdom. I was closely connected with other accountability partners, and just, man, the call that God has for us in our life in a Christian walk. Man, I was experiencing all of those things at such a deeper level. And I just had this burden of, man, God's given me this. And so few people have an opportunity to go through something like I just went through. Man, I need to go and help and with churches and other people, and I want to lead more groups. And that was just that deep conviction that God just kind of put on my heart. It was almost a burden. It was a burden just to help others because of what He had given me.
Right. Now, it's fascinating to me. I've always shared that, the closest thing to our relationship with the Lord in the flesh is our relationship in marriage. And it sounds like your bride was ready for you to be a chemical engineer and be a financial provider, to a high level and give all the comforts of home. How did that mature? In understanding that you really are living a Christ-centered relationship now and not distracted by a lot of the secular stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a huge misconception in marriage, in ministry, that if you're in ministry, you're broke, right? And God's given in the Bibles, man, you shouldn't muzzle an ox while it's treading grain, right? It's like, man, ministers need to be fed too. And that was something for my wife, is she also just, a lot of women, a lot of wives need to kind of see the thing, right? Not just verbally hear it.
Right.
At least my experience, that's how my wife is wired. Is like, it's all great if I tell her things, but until I actually do it and follow up and commit to it, that's when she really believes it. And so for her, what was helpful is seeing that, okay, God's providing, we're financially all right. He's taking care of our needs, not necessarily all of our wants, but He's taking care of our needs. And she was able to kind of see that play out. And then the other piece was the spiritual part is, man, I was praying a lot for her. I had other people praying for her. And she was praying. So just,
she was praying for a different thing though.
Yeah. She would say she was praying for me to not do good but regardless, she's still praying for her heart just to be, to hear from what God really wants for our life. And so, the culmination of just some things by the Spirit of just, man, different people, her friends their husbands beginning to struggle, or just hearing just the impact of the ministry on tangible people that are close to her, not just far off online or, these other things. That all those, the Lord has used all those things and just some time to really open her heart to this opportunity. And like I said before, she's way on fire for it now. She's creating a Bible study for parents actually right now to help talk about this kind of stuff and the biblical basis of all this, of what's our responsibility as a parent. So she's working on all those things right now. So it's really exciting.
Fantastic. And I think that's the bottom line, is we have to lead spiritually by example. And I've never met a woman that did not want a spiritual leader in the home. But I do know that Robert Lewis said this years ago, that what sex is to men and validation of a relationship, security is to a woman to validate a relationship. So I know when I left the corporate world, I was confident I'd have a paycheck somewhere, but that wasn't a weekly or monthly paycheck coming in. I knew we'd have health care somewhere, but we don't have a company health care right now. These are security issues that are very important, obviously. In this world, you have to have some type of security for your home, and that sounds like that's come around for you to help her embrace fully that it isn't. We don't have to survive in the secular world to provide, for our families. We have to actively engage in the biblical worldview, and like you said, maybe the needs are getting redefined all the time, and the wants are getting redefined as needs in the secular world. Whereas in the ministry, we want to make sure that we clearly define that we're controlling the cost side of the equation as much as we are the income side. But that's fascinating. And tell us finally, in wrapping up this segment, what is your role today with Freedom Fight?
Yeah, so I'm the director of operations, and so I've played a lot of hats. I've overseen all of our technical development. So we're an online ministry. We have an app. We do a lot of development to make our app, I think is great and work and be able to connect users from all over the world. So I used to oversee that, and I've replaced myself there now. But play lots of hats to really keeping the ministry going. some of the core roles I really love is I develop leaders to lead other men and women. I personally lead groups. I've got 2 groups going right now. And then I'm pouring into other leaders who are wanting to lead groups and are leading groups to help them maximize those times, work with churches, all in that vein, how can we equip people? The Freedom Fight does not want everybody to come to the Freedom Fight. We want to equip leaders to be able to use this as a discipleship tool for their ministry to help the people in their communities.
Sure.
That's our ultimate goal.
Fantastic. So you're operations manager for Freedom Fight.
Yep.
And that requires multiple hats in your office.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm glad that you moved from personal to professional, and dads, listen to that message that sometimes the Lord works in strange ways, but maybe you're on a journey yourself to stay clean, and maybe you have some friends that you know are struggling. Step into that arena, and in this next segment, we'll talk a little bit more about specifically how you can get involved with Freedom Fight if that's what needs to be done. And yes, it is a fight for freedom because the devil's out there working to distract, discourage, despair in this arena. So stay alert, stay on guard, stay in prayer, and always focus on loving your bride as Christ loves the church. That's the dad you're called to be, and that's the dad the next generation needs. God bless. Godspeed.